With another video, and today we're going to be looking at the 2020 presidential election and looking in at the states that actually were affected by the coronavirus pandemic and the possibilities of flipping and things like that. So all the states in your screen currently are the states that I think have a possibility of flipping from where they were in 2016. So these states are going to be the ones affected by coronavirus, and we're going to do a part 2 of this video, the states that are affected by the George Floyd protest. So basically, the states that really were affected by coronavirus are the Rust Belt and parts of the Sun Belt. So I'm going to go through all the states. I'm going to characterize them, which party I think they would go to, and why I think the coronavirus had a big impact on those states. So starting with your state of Arizona, I think it was looking pretty good for Donald Trump to win narrowly. So this is what I thought. But honestly, after the coronavirus and Trump's handling, unfortunately for him, the Joe Biden campaign is looking like they will win that election, which at the end of the day, it's a pretty good breakthrough for the Democratic Party. Winning a state like Arizona at this point in time, pretty good achievement, because remember, only 4 years ago, even 10 years ago, we had Republicans John McCain, that's his home state, but still, Republicans winning by 10-point margins and things like that. To start and flip it and them winning by 2 or 3 points, that's pretty amazing. So I think before it went from tilt Trump all the way to lean Biden. Now, when it comes to this district in Nebraska, I thought that the pandemic so I thought this is what it was going to be looking like, a tilt margin, and I accidentally flipped them. Okay, it doesn't matter. So just the red ones are Trump. Let me fix that, because that was my bad. So I thought that district in Nebraska was gonna go by a tilt margin, and honestly, I think it's going to stay in the column, but there you go. It's gonna go to Trump by a little more than a tilt margin. I think it's going to go into the lean column. The coronavirus and pandemic affected them, but the Republican governor and just some of the different things that Donald Trump did nationwide, they could be fought in this city, because technically this district is the city of Omaha and Lincoln, and then some rural areas, which obviously at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to be, especially in this Midwestern area, upper Midwest, more like upper Midwest, like Midwest, almost like west of the United States. This area was very crucial of reopening and things like that. So I think they would have gone narrowly to Donald Trump. Before, now it's gonna go by a bigger margin. State of Iowa has actually changed a lot, because this is just coronavirus. So now, we also have to consider the George Floyd protests when making an actual prediction. But in all reality, I honestly think that the George Floyd protests will have more effects in areas with suburbs and African American vote substantially. So I'm gonna do part of this video later on. We're gonna check out that part. So Iowa, I thought it was gonna go to Donald Trump by a likely margin, but now that after the pandemic, I think it's gonna go down to a lean margin. So these are just the states that are going to be super close, and I think they were actually impacted somehow by that pandemic. For example, states like Texas, okay, they've gone down a little bit for the Republican Party, but still, it's still in the same margin. So I don't think all these states that you're seeing are characterized a different way than what I thought before the pandemic. So with the state of Wisconsin, I think before the pandemic, Joe Biden was looking like he was gonna win it by a narrow margin. After the pandemic, it's looking like Donald Trump will narrowly carry it out, but it's a win anyways. You could win by one vote in some of these elections. You win the whole 10 electoral votes. So at this point, I think Donald Trump has a nice and good chance of winning the state of Wisconsin. When it comes to the state of Michigan, before the pandemic, actually, it was looking pretty good for the Democratic Party. I think before the pandemic, it was likely state for the Democratic Party, but now I'm pushing it down to a lean state. Why? Well, you have very unpopular Governor Gretchen Whitmer, which will be associated with Biden, whether she's a VP or not. Democratic voters in Michigan will say, well, it's Gretchen Whitmer. She's a Democrat, and she made us go through this super long quarantine for nothing. So at this point, I think the state of Michigan could go down to a couple points. But at the end of the day, it's going to go to the Democratic Party. When it comes to the state of Ohio, I actually think Donald Trump will carry this by a lean margin as well. Honestly, I think that the coronavirus pandemic did affect these states. And honestly, if you asked me, Joe Biden is not the candidate to flip a state like Ohio. Yes, he has African American appeal, and of course, there's the turnout with the African American vote and things like that. But Joe Biden is not the candidate. I don't think he's the candidate to do something like that. And I think Donald Trump would have taken the rural areas by storm and won by a comfortable margin. Now, when we go down to the state of Florida, pre-pandemic, I think it was looking pretty it was going to be very tight. I think it was going to be tilt Republican, and honestly, the pandemic actually is helping out the Republicans. So this is not considering any George Floyd protests, nothing of that. Just pre-pandemic against post-pandemic. Post-pandemic, I think we're gonna see this state going by a lean margin. Look, Florida has been a growing Republican state, and there's no denying that because actually in suburbs they're going back to the Republican Party. So now that we see state of Florida and flipping, and then we have a governor who's actually been praised by a lot of Floridians for reopening the state and in a safer manner, with closing beaches if it gets too crowded and things like that. So I think Floridians that live in the state of Florida, because, well, Floridians don't live in other parts of the country. Floridians, they're going to be very happy with the GOP government, and they're going to give a vote to Donald Trump and extending their hand for them to get another 29 electoral votes. What is left? Well, the state of North Carolina. Pre-pandemic, I think it was looking like it was going to be either by in a lean margin. It was going to be a nice margin for the Republican Party. But now that I look at it, post-pandemic and pre-George Floyd protest, I think it's going down to a tilt margin. Here's why. Roy Cooper, the Democratic governor of the state, has been doing an amazing job. And again, the people put those two and two together. Democratic governor, Republican governor, amazing job. So, we might be able to see something like a nice portion of votes going to the Democratic Party. Still not enough to flip the state, mind you, but still, it's a substantial amount. Something is better than nothing, but at this point, you have to win by one vote, and that's it. And honestly, I don't think Democrats will be able to do that. When it comes to the state of Pennsylvania, before the pandemic, I think it was in the same boat as Michigan, as it was going to be in the likely state. And pre-George Floyd protest, I think it actually moved down to a lean state. And it's kind of for the same reasons that happened in Michigan. And here's the thing. Also, you guys must consider that polling. Yeah, polling is very kind of biased oftentimes. Because look, some of these states are underrepresented when it comes to different areas of the country, and specifically speaking, they're very underpolled in the rural areas. So those rural areas that go out to vote for one candidate or the other by big margins, they're usually underrepresented, which at the end of the day could become biased and the polls might not be correct. So I think that would have looked like pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, and honestly, what we have been seeing post-pandemic margins narrow up. We've seen all these states narrow up some way or another. But we've seen states like Florida. I think that's the only state, and maybe the state of Arizona, they've expanded the lead for each candidate. When it comes to Maine 2nd District, pre-pandemic, it was looking pretty good for Donald Trump. He was probably going to win by a nice margin. I think it was going to be like a likely margin or something like that. But after a pandemic and all of the things that happened after, I think it's going to narrow down a little more. But the effects weren't as felt in that part of the state of Maine. So I think it would have gone down to a lean margin. So pre-pandemic, we would have seen states like, I just don't mind the margins. Pre-pandemic, I think this would have been our map. So that would have been our map. And I think, that would be the only change. Did I flip any other states? Yeah. This would have been in favor of the Democratic Party. Pre-pandemic, it's technically going to look very similar. It's 278 to 260. But now, flipping those two states for each of the parties, it became 279 to 11. So guys, I'm going to be doing a part 2 on my channel of from this map that we have now. So the map that we currently have on your screen, um, towards the new George Floyd protest post that event map. So guys, I want to thank all of you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe if you're not yet so, because when we reach 250 subscribers, we're going to be doing a big giveaway, and I'm really excited to give away some stuff. So guys, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and bye!